So we are saying today, Kasoma Farouk of Uganda is going to show you why Korea was divided into what? Into two. We believe that at one time Korea was one, but finally Korea was divided into two. So we are saying Korea had been under Japanese colonial rule from 1910 to 1945. When Japan surrendered at the end of World War II in August 1945, the Allies had to decide on how to administer Korea. So we believe by this time, Korea was under Japanese colonial rule. You remember that Japan was defeated in World War II. So by this time, Korea, when Japan surrendered at the end of World War II in August 1945, the Allies had to decide on how to administer Korea. In other words, they had to choose on how to administer Korea. So reasons for the division: occupation by two superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union agreed to accept the surrender of Japanese forces in different parts of Korea. The peninsula was divided temporarily along the 38th parallel. Soviet forces occupied the north, American forces occupied the south. So we are saying occupation by two superpowers. When the two superpowers occupied Korea, and one superpower occupied the north, another one occupied the what? The south. So by this, they influenced these groups to believe in different ideologies. The northern communism by Soviet Union, and the south capitalism by USA. That's why Korea was divided into two. Another one, Cold War rivalry. After World War II, tensions grew between the United States and Soviet Union. The Soviet Union supported a communist government in the north, while the United States supported a democratic anti-communist government in the south. So we believe Cold War rivalry. Because of Cold War politics, I can tell you the communists wanted Korea to adopt communism. The capitalists wanted Korea to adopt what? Capitalism. And by this time, the north had to adopt communism. The south had to adopt what? Capitalism. So Cold War rivalry. Then the creation of separate governments, 1948. In 1948, two separate states were established: Republic of Korea, South Korea in the south. And by this time, we are realizing even the North Korea was established in the north. Each government claimed to be the legitimate ruler of the entire Korean peninsula. So by this time, problems arose. I can tell you the creation of separate governments, 1948, led to the division of Korea into what? Into two. Because they finally came up with two separate governments. Then the Korean War, 1950 to 1953. North Korea invaded South Korea in 1950, leading to the Korean War. The war ended with the armistice, not a peace treaty. The border remained to the original 30th parallel, reinforced by the Korean demilitarized zone. So the Korean War, where North Korea invaded South Korea, this meant that Korea had to be divided into what? Into two. Because every camp was not believing to remain in one Korea as one. So this led to the division of Korea into two. The emergence of leaders like Kim Il-sung. The emergence of leaders like Kim Il-sung in the north. This man wanted to become the leader of Korea, and the South Korea could not accept it. So it is this that explains why Korea was divided into what? Into two. Changes rising up. So friends, we need to understand why Korea was divided into two. We believe the the Cold War powers, USA and USSR, influenced different sections of the Koreans to take their side. That's why the North Korea had to accept communism. The South Korea had to accept what? Capitalism. And by this time, Korea was divided into what? Into two. So we believe in this kind of arrangement that Korea had to be divided into two. Another one, economic differences. We believe that South Korea was more developed in terms of resources than North Korea. So it could not accept to be under the control of the North Korea. So it is this that explains why Korea was divided into two. So I can tell you, Korea was divided into two because of reasons. Because of what? Reasons. So friends, you need to understand why Korea was divided into two. Now currently, we have two Korea, South Korea and North what? Korea. Because after World War II,